The first burst of laughter struck like shrapnel, sharp and unrelenting. I was leaning against the scared oak bar, nursing a flat beer, when the seal with the crooked grin lifted his glass high. "Hey, Victoria Hargrove," he bellowed, voice carrying over the clink of bottles and the low thump of country music. "What's your call sign? Or do keyboard warriors even rate one?" The room exploded, back slapping, boots stomping. That laughter didn't drift away. It sank teeth into skin and stayed. Nobody said a word in my defense. Not even the guy whose heartbeat I'd once steadied through a crackling satellite link. He stared into his whiskey like it might sprout answers. Something inside me didn't snap. It clarified, cold and surgical. They didn't see a sailor, a strategist, a life saver. They saw a woman who'd wandered into the wrong legend. I set my glass down with deliberate care. "You want my call sign?" I asked. His grin widened, cocky, certain. He never should have pushed. Dawn in Norfolk always arrived polite, asking permission from the gulls before it spilled across the water. I stood at my kitchen window, steam curling from a chipped navy mug, watching the pier lights surrender to pale gold. The first freighter horn rolled in low and mournful, the sound my father called the ocean's heartbeat. "Listen to it, Vicky," he'd say, grease under his nails from patching hulls. "It'll teach you timing better than any officer." My mother, sleeves rolled high, stitched sailors back together in the base clinic and never wasted thread on self-pity. Between them I learned power wasn't volume, it was accuracy. At 20 I enlisted, drawn to the war nobody filmed. Bites instead of bullets, pulses instead of powder. I'd spent a decade threading signals through sandstorms, turning static into salvation. One blistering afternoon, outside a nameless forward operating base, a SEAL team bled out on an open channel. 90 seconds of frantic keystrokes later, they breathed again. The after-action review called it restored comms. My name stayed redacted. 8 years overseas earned me a windowless cubicle at the Naval Communications Hub, where the loudest sound was the air conditioning. Then the secure line buzzed. "Hargrove, pack for Coronado. You're running cyber integration for Budides Phase 3? Click. The ghosts I'd buried stirred. Coronado, the same sand where that team had trained, the same team I'd pulled from the grave. I folded my blues, tucked my dog tag into the breast pocket like a secret, and boarded the transport. They might not remember the voice that saved them, but I remembered every syllable of their panic. The California sun knifed through the terminal windows, turning jet exhaust into shimmering ghosts. Salt and kerosene hit me like déjà vu. By 1100 I strode into the briefing amphitheater, boots echoing off polished tile. Commander Marcus Hale waited center stage, posture loose, eyes lazy. The last time I'd heard that voice, it had cracked across a failing freck, begging for a miracle. Now it dripped easy swagger. He extended a hand. "Welcome aboard, Captain. Try not to let the air conditioning frostbite those delicate fingers." Chairs scraped, chuckles rippled. I gripped his hand firm enough to feel the flinch. "I've thawed in worse climates than cheap shots, Commander." The laughter died unevenly. He didn't know the woman shaking his hand had once been his lifeline. During the threat brief, I flagged a backdoor in the training mesh. Hale waved it off. "We've got redundancies, Hargrove. Real operators worry about bullets, not bugs." Same tune, different verse. Later, while walking cadets through packet sniffing, a lanky ensign named Tyler Reed leaned too close. "Ma'am, were you ever in that dust up near the ridge? Your voice, it sounds familiar." The room hushed. "That's above your pay grade, ensign." They laughed again, but Tyler's eyes stayed serious. He knew. That evening I spotted a framed photo on Hale's desk. His old platoon, sunburned, grinning, alive. Scrawled beneath, "To the angel in the wires." The angel had landed, and nobody noticed. Driving home, the emergency band crackled. Unscheduled packet flood. Pacific Sim Center. Ice slid down my spine. Something ancient had woken inside the network. Midnight found me alone in the server barn, red strobes painting the walls. My monitor screamed UNKNWNOI Jin Parobi. I traced it to a burner node in Eastern Europe, sniffing seals swim lanes. Every time I raised a flag, the system auto-cleared, signed by Hale. I burned the logs to a thumb drive, filed a hard copy incident report, and killed the session. Next morning I briefed the findings. Hale snorted. Hargrove seeing gremlins again. Stick to PowerPoint, Captain. Ladder, predictable as tide. I said nothing, just watched them polish their own coffins. Tyler slipped into my office after dark, door easing shut. Ma'am, the intrusion spoofing our drone feeds. You didn't hear it from me. I nodded once. At least one set of ears still works. I opened a classified archive labeled ECHONET. The packet signatures matched. Same handshake, same arrogance. I stared past the glass at the Black Pacific. History stuttered, ready to loop. On the final page of the old incident report glowed my designation. Operator Wraith 4. The Wraith wasn't finished. Mess hall next morning carried the smug hush of men who thought jokes were armor. Someone behind me muttered, "Careful, the binary witch might hex your oatmeal." I kept buttering my toast. Silence had always unnerved them more than return fire. During the live fire integration brief, I projected anomalous traffic spikes. Hale folded his arms. "We eat stress for breakfast, Hargrove. You count calories." The room roared. I let it crest, then spoke soft. "Stress digests slow. Ignorance kills instant." The laughter choked. I gathered my tablet and left, pulse steady, anger iced. San Clemente Island, Euro 600. The platoon hit the surf for infiltration X. 30 seconds in, comms flatlined. Lost sat link, no nav, any station, respond. Hale's voice fractured across the ether. I slid into the mobile command van, fingers flying. 90 seconds of raw code later, the channel cleared. Link restored, proceed to waypoint Bravo. Hale's exhale crackled through. Nice save, Hargrove, blind luck. Luck was probability I'd calculated at age 12. The van stayed quiet, gratitude, endation, and resentment wrestled in their eyes. That night I walked the pier alone, boots thudding hollow on salt, warped planks. You can hand a man tomorrow and still not earn today, I thought. I didn't need statues. I needed the moment when truth no longer required a mouthpiece. Hale passed 20 yards off, slowed, almost spoke, then didn't. His silence had weight now, guilt, not dismissal. Progress. By Monday the base treated me like background radiation. Conversations evaporated when I entered the ready room. Eyes slid past like I was fog. I'd endured colder vacuums in server rooms. During a gear-up brief, the youngest SEAL, Brody Kane, smirked. "Ma'am, can you code us an undo button for screw-ups?" Snickers ricocheted. I met his gaze. "No, but I can teach you not to need one." The room iced over, Brody's mouth opened, closed. Later, auditing access logs, I found the breach origin. Kane's personal credential, lazy password reused from a gaming account. Reporting it would end his career. I hesitated, then sanitized the entry. Mission before ego. Hale couldn't resist one more jab in the chow line. "Watch your 6 boys. The Wraith might vanish your ammo count." They howled. I smiled small. "Closer to the mark than you know, Commander." They thought it banter. I knew it prophecy. That night, I opened my encrypted journal from the ridge up. Page after page of signal decay, frantic keystrokes, lives balanced on bandwidth. I was vapor to them. Maybe vapors exist to remind flesh what absence costs. Tyler knocked, uneasy. "Rumor says you staged the glitch for Spotlight." I closed the file. People confuse composure with conspiracy. Let them. Walking out, I caught Kane and 2 buddies guffawing in the corridor. "Wraith lady thinks she's Superman." Tyler spun, voice ablade. She pulled your sorry ass out of the fire twice, Kane. Stow it. The hallway froze. I kept moving, eyes stinging, spine rigid. The whisper had found its answer. Friday night the team hauled me to the rusty Trident, their sacred watering hole of neon and spilled secrets. Refusal would brand me outsider forever. I wore faded jeans, black tee, hair in a severe knot, camouflage for a war I never enlisted in. Beers sloshed, stories escalated, toasts to blown knees and bar fights gave way, inevitably, to me. Code Witch, Ghost Geek, Wraith Lady. Kane, 3 sheets gone. Hoisted his mug. Yo Hargrove, cough up the call sign. Or did IT issue you a default? Lauder crashed like cymbals. Hale, nursing a soda nearby, chuckled. Easy, lads. She bruises. It sounded protective. It cut deeper. I studied the faces, men I'd resurrected from static. I set my glass down gentle. My call sign, Wraith 4. The room inhaled. Tyler stood slow, the Wraith 4 from the ridge. That was you. Hale's tan drained to parchment. That's classified, Captain. Bad form. I nodded. It was. Until tonight. Even the ancient jukebox seemed to choke. A grizzled chief stepped forward, eyes round. Mum, my cousin was on that bird. You gave him a future. Shock rippled outward, guilt thick as smoke. Victory tasted like ash. I walked into the salt night. Hale's voice cracked behind me. Victoria. I didn't turn. You never asked, Marcus. That's the punchline. Dawn painted the base in bruised purple. Nods replaced smirks in the passageways. Some couldn't hold my gaze. Truth traveled faster than gossip ever had. On my desk waited a manila folder, Operata Anecho Neni Operador RAH4, a note clipped to the front. Unauthorized disclosure. Inquiry scheduled 0900. I attended in dress blues, back straight. Hale testified first, claiming ignorance of the Ridge savior. Tyler followed, voice steady. It was her, sir. I watched the packets dance. The panel's silence weighed tons. Rear Admiral Whittaker summoned me privately. We've known for years, Captain. You honored the classification. That ends here. He slid transfer orders across mahogany. Effective immediately, Joint Cyber Command, DC. You're needed where the stakes are measured in cities, not sand. Outside, Hale lingered, hands buried in pockets. I never said thank you. I met his eyes. Don't thank me. Thank the version of you that learns. That night I sat on my tiny balcony, moonlight silvering the dog tag in my palm. It's finished, I thought. The Pacific murmured otherwise, patient as ever. 2 years later, Washington hummed with the subdued urgency of decisions that launched satellites and ended wars. I commanded Task Force Crimson Line, 12 analysts who babysat the Navy's unmanned eyes so carriers could steam blindfolded. Storms at sea were honest. Certainty in marble halls was the real killer. One November evening the watch console vomited alerts fire, control channel hijack, vectoring a drone toward a marketplace in Tripoli. Pattern recognition lit up. Coordinate drift of precisely 412 meters, the same lazy spoof from Coronado. If the bird released, children became collateral. I escalated. The duty colonel Ty Askew barked, field confirms target. Launch stands. I countered, data's poisoned. Abort. He doubled down. 10 minutes, blood away. With the chain frozen, I punched an emergency override through a legacy relay. Locking the drone in hover. Alarms howled. A trembling lieutenant announced, override source Captain Hargrove. Admiral Whittaker patched in. Voice calm steel. Walk me through it. I recited the signature match, the civilian overlay. He reviewed telemetry, then, abort confirmed. Stand down the bird. Post-mortem maps showed militants scattering along the old false vector. We'd spared a neighborhood. Whittaker's email arrived before sunrise. Competence speaks softly, it still commands. Promotion to captain followed like punctuation. Late autumn. Pentagon corridors quiet enough to hear fluorescent hum. My aide buzzed visitor. Marcus Hale stepped through, uniform frayed at the cuffs. eyes carrying mileage. 2 years had carved humility into his bones. He stopped short of my desk. You didn't need to gut me in that bar. I leaned back. I didn't. Truth has its own knife. He placed a photograph on the blotter. New SEAL candidates clustered around a holographic display labeled CYBR-KLLKHAN. Mandatory module now. Your module. I studied the eager faces. That's how you apologize. His mouth twitched, almost a smile. Some still say you fabricated the legend for clout. Let them. Nightlights for the insecure. He exhaled, long and slow. The silence between us finally felt clean. At the door he paused. Worth it? I answered before he finished. You're standing here. That's the metric. The door clicked shut. Sunset blood gold across the nameplate capped. Victoria Hargrove, Deputy Director, Naval Cyber Operations. Outside, the Potomac lay flat as glass, reflecting monuments that had outlasted louder egos. Forgiveness, I realized, was simply the moment the echo stopped needing a canyon. 10 years later, Norfolk smelled of diesel and memory. Morning light knifed between destroyers as the band struck up. Anchors away. Fresh lieutenants stood ramrod in dress whites, eyes wide with the terror of possibility. I mounted the podium, breeze tugging my admiral's stars. Rear Admiral Victoria Hargrove. The title still felt like a coat tailored by someone else's life. I spoke briefly: duty, the discipline of listening, the courage to let silence do the heavy lifting. Applause was polite, oblivious to the scars beneath the words. Afterward, a young ensign approached, uniform creases sharp enough to cut. Mum, I enlisted because of the Wraith legend. I smiled. Then surpass the legend. Speak only when the math demands it. She pressed a lapel pin into my hand. Silver circuit fused to trident. Inscribed beneath crimson line doctrine. In honor of Wraith 4, we see the unseen. The past, once ridiculed into shadow, now anchored their future. I closed my fist around cool metal. Near the gangway, Marcus waited in civilian khakis, posture eased by retirement. Our eyes locked, he saluted crisp. I returned it sharper. No residue. Tyler, now Instructor Chief Reed, joined us on the pier. We walked the planks slow, gulls wheeling overhead, from bar punchline to core curriculum. He mused. I laughed, low and free. Vengeance shouts. Evolution whispers. We listened to ropes creak, buoys clang, the eternal hush of water against steel. Nothing left to prove. When they left, I lingered until the crowd thinned to memory. I drew my dog tag from my pocket, edges softened by a decade of skin. The engraving caught the Sun v. Hargrove Wraith 4. Truth doesn't need volume. I murmured. It just needs tide. The wind answered through the rigging, steady as the first horn I ever heard. The scene dissolved into the hush of waves, leaving one quiet line etched in salt and light: Rear Admiral Victoria Hargrove, architect of Crimson Line integrity, and beneath it only the ocean spoke. I wasn't done yet. The pin in my pocket felt heavier than metals. That afternoon I boarded a helo to Quantico, invited to guest, lecture the next generation of cyber operators. The classroom smelled of dry, erase markers and nervous sweat. I projected the Ridge incident. Redacted, of course. But let the raw packet dump scroll. Gasps rippled when the drone feed flatlined. I walked them through every keystroke, every heartbeat decision. A midshipman raised her hand. Ma'am, how do you stay calm when they're laughing? I smiled. Laughter is noise. Signal is truth. Learn the difference. After class she lingered. My dad was on that team. He told me never forget the voice in the dark. I swallowed hard. Tell him the voice never forgot him. Back in Norfolk that evening, I found an unmarked envelope slid under my hotel door. Inside, a single Polaroid of the old platoon, backs to camera, raising beers to the sunset. On the white border, Hale's scrawl, we finally see the whole picture. I pinned it above my temporary desk, beside the new doctrine coin. Ghosts, it seemed, could become guardian angels when the living learned to look up. Months later, deployed aboard USS Valor, I stood the mid-watch in CIC. The sea state was glass, stars sharp enough to cut. A junior sailor approached, hesitant. "Ma'am, permission to speak freely." I nodded. "My sister's at the academy. She says your stories required reading now." I chuckled. "Hope they redacted the bar scene." He grinned. They kept the punchline. We shared coffee in silence, the kind that doesn't need filling. Overhead satellites I'd once babysat blinked across the firmament, carrying voices yet unheard. Years rolled like swells. I mentored, testified before Congress, rewrote acquisition specs so no contractor could bury a back door. Each briefing room carried echoes of that first bar, but now the laughter died before it started. One spring morning in the Pentagon, I received a secure VTC request. Rear Admiral Whittaker, retired, calling from his fishing boat. "Victoria, they're naming the new cyber range after you. Wanted you to hear it from me." I stared at the bulkhead. "I didn't ask for real estate." He laughed. "You earned the zip code. Ceremonies in Norfolk. Bring the dog tag." I did. The dedication drew hundreds. Cadets, flag officers, even a contingent of SEALs wearing subdued tridents. Tyler emceed. Hale cut the ribbon. When they unveiled the sign, Hargrove CYBR Inauguratio and Cientar, I felt the past fold into the present like a perfect encryption key. Cameras flashed. I kept my remarks short. Buildings are concrete. Doctrine is blood. Keep both secure. That night, alone on the center's rooftop, city lights glittering below like spilled code, I opened my hand. The old dog tag lay beside the new coin, past and future touching edges. I clipped the tag to the coin's ribbon, let them dangle together over the railing. Wind lifted them, chiming soft. Somewhere out in the dark Atlantic, a ship's horn sounded low, steady, patient. I smiled into the night. The girl who once stood silent in a bar full of giants had built a fortress of listening. The wraith had become the watchtower. Decades later, white-haired and slower on the ladder rungs, I returned to Norfolk one final time. The center bore my name in brushed steel, but inside, young voices argued packet latency and quantum key distribution. I slipped into the back of a lecture hall unobserved. The instructor, a captain I'd once pulled from academic probation, projected my ridge op, narrating with reverence. A cadet asked the same question I'd heard a lifetime ago. "How do you stay calm when they laugh?" The captain smiled. "You remember Wraith 4. She taught us laughter is temporary. Lives are not." I left before the lights came up, tears tracking salt I no longer bothered to hide. On the pier, dawn painted the water rose and gold. I drew the dog tag and coin from my pocket one last time. The engraving had worn to whispers, but I knew every letter. I pressed them into the hand of a passing ensign. Wide-eyed, eager female. "Carry these until someone needs reminding," I said. She stared, recognized, started to salute. I stopped her. "Just listen harder than you speak." She nodded, eyes shining. I walked away lighter, the wind carrying the faint chime of metal finding new skin. The ocean took my footprints as fast as I made them. Behind me, the ensign stood silhouetted against the rising sun, dog tag glinting at her throat. Ahead, the horizon stretched endless, patient, inevitable. I smiled, tasting salt and closure. The wraith had finally dissolved into the signal itself. Every packet, every voice, every life saved in the dark. And the sea, eternal auditor, kept the only ledger that mattered. The years kept rolling in like high tide, steady and unstoppable, erasing footprints while carving deeper grooves into the shore. I had stepped back from the podiums, the classified briefs, the emergency VTCs that once lit up my nights like tracer rounds. Retirement, they called it. I called it a wider watch. My house sat on a low bluff overlooking Chesapeake Bay, windows open to the salt wind, Every room tuned to the same frequency I'd listened to since childhood, the low, patient voice of water against land. Mornings, I brewed coffee strong enough to stand a spoon in and walked the narrow path to the water's edge. The dog tag and coin were gone, passed forward, as they should be. But their weight lingered in muscle memory, the way a sailor still feels the pitch of a deck long after coming ashore. One October dawn, the burner phone I kept in a locked drawer buzzed once, then went silent. I knew the cadence: urgent, deniable, personal. The message was a single line of encrypted text: Regecioacti vini du raih. No signature, no routing data, just a ghost reaching through the ether. I stood on the porch, wind whipping my hair silver, and felt the old clarity settle in my chest like a compass finding true north. Someone, somewhere, had tripped the same signature I'd buried decades ago. The pattern never died, it just waited for new arrogance to feed it. I drove south in a plain gray sedan, no plates that traced back, no transponder pings. Norfolk had changed. Taller buildings, smarter drones buzzing the piers, but the smell was eternal diesel, brine, possibility. I parked in the public lot and walked the fence line of the Hargrove Cyber Integration Center until a side gate clicked open. Tyler Reed, gray at the temples now, still moving like he expected incoming, met me with a nod instead of a salute. "Thought you'd come," he said. "Couldn't keep you away with a court-martial." Inside the ops floor, holographic displays painted the air in shifting blues and reds. A young lieutenant commander, name tape and wine, briefed without looking up. "Same handshake, ma'am, but this time it's nested in the new quantum mesh. They're using our own encryption against us." I studied the cascading packets, felt the old rhythm in my fingertips. "They always do," I said. "Show me the bleed." We worked through the night, 3 generations in one room. Tyler on tactics and Guyan on theory, me on memory. At Zevo 400 we isolated the vector. Someone inside the supply chain had slipped a logic bomb into the firmware of the latest drone swarm. If it detonated during the upcoming fleet exercise, half the Atlantic battle group would go blind. Nguyen's voice cracked. "We report this, heads roll. Careers end before they start." Tyler looked at me, the question unspoken. I remembered Kane's lazy password, the career I'd quietly saved. I remembered the marketplace in Tripoli. "Careers recover," I said. "Children don't. Burn it down."